I was just thinking there, right? Can you separate that? Can you separate the athlete from the man? Can you separate the sportsman from the man? Give some examples. Well, I was thinking some modern day examples. No, I'll give us a few from back in the day. And I'm sure there's many now. Put the comments below of the current up-to-date examples of this, right? So you have great sportsmen who achieve great feats in their chosen field. And then you do something to ruin it all, to show that maybe they weren't that great after all, you know? So I think we'd just like to delve into that a little bit and talk about you know, are there truly great people, or is it all just a facade and they did great things but they had the flaw? They weren't really that great after all, because great, the word great suggests that, you know, great, above it all, you know, they do nothing wrong, you know. And people make mistakes, but we're talking about huge mistakes. We're talking about egregious things that some of these so-called great sportsmen have done. So, a couple of examples: the late great, in inverted commas, Colin McRae, world rally champion and all the rest of it. So he was a Scottish legend, wasn't he? Rallying legend, Scottish superstar sportsman. And then what did he do? He ruined it all by flying in the helicopter, taking, I believe it was a couple of young children up in the helicopter for a joyride, and it was a joyride. And there was a whole inquiry as to a fatal accident inquiry, because the helicopter crashed, everyone died in it, including Colin McRae. The children died as well. The families weren't very happy about that, as you can imagine. There was a whole inquiry, and obviously they had all the data from the data recorder from the helicopter, and what they discovered was Colin was pulling some very irresponsible, dangerous manoeuvres, which you're not supposed to do, really. There's certain protocols and certain rules of engagement, I suppose you could say. And he pulled some very dangerous manoeuvres, and it was found that Colin McRae was guilty of you know, causing the death of everyone on board, including himself. So then we have Prince Naseem Hamed, of course, boxing in inverted commas legend, and he beat everybody, didn't he? Emulated Ali in the style and the whole, you know, I'm gonna knock you out. Yeah, I'm so good. He was like that. He was like, I'm gonna be so good, you know, and you know, with Allah behind him, he was invincible, and he would have the president of Yemen donating him very fancy cars, and everyone loved him. They used to come to watch him train, everything. So he was a legendary boxer, wasn't he? And he got beat as one of his, I believe it was his final match. He got beat by Barrera, who knocked him out, and he was a little bit complacent. He was partying a bit too much, didn't really prepare properly, and let his guard down a little bit. And that was really the beginning of the end. But if you look in his private life, what did Prince Naz do? He drove not once, I believe it was several times. Drove recklessly in one of his fancy sports cars on the open road, and he pulled a very dangerous manoeuvre, speeding at well over the speed limit. Went over the brow of a hill or something like that, and pulled a very dangerous manoeuvre, causing the severe and permanent disfigurement of the other passenger, the other innocent passenger. Of course, he did jail time for it. Is that the kind of behaviour that we expect from great athletes? Legendary athletes? And as I say, legendary suggests that, legendary, it's not very acceptable behaviour, that, is it? So again, there's two ways you could respond to that. You could go, well, that just proves that he isn't legendary after all. And of course, for those who believe that these athletes were legendary, they would just interpret any of their behaviour as fine and just excuse it, Can you be too big to fail, too big to fail? Because I would argue that it's not very legendary to permanently disfigure someone. Imagine if an ordinary in inverted commas person down the street did that kind of behaviour. They would be shamed. They would be absolutely castigated, what's the word, in their community for that sort of behaviour. So it's not really very cool behaviour that you would expect from legendary sportsmen, is it now? So what can you separate the man or woman from the legendary sportsman? Do these acts perpetrated or performed by these people, does that pierce the bubble in the facade of so-called greatness, or do we forgive them for it? Do we put a higher standard up? Do we put a higher standard of behaviour that we expect from these people than everyone else? That's a little bit it's not really very good, is it? There should be the same standard of behaviour that we expect from all people, because in my opinion, because really, if you are so legendary, your behaviour should be impeccable. I mean, obviously people make mistakes, don't they? But it's an interesting question, though, isn't it? It's an interesting question, because I would argue part of what makes someone great is character. It's all very well to perform amazing feats in the ring or on the sports pitch or on, whatever venue it is, but I think if you hold yourself up as great or legendary, and of course some of these people didn't do that themselves, other people did, but I think if you do label people as great or legendary, I think personally, I think you've got to look at their entire behaviour, not just that they show on the sports field. Really, that's my feeling, but I don't know what anyone else thinks about that. I mean, you would see, this is like years after Colin McRae's death, and you'd see the Colin McRae kind of legendary stickers on people's cars, and you kind of think to yourself, how do you sleep at night? Are you still saying that? Are you still proud of Colin McRae? You still his the family, the mother and father of those kids that were killed, and they park up in a McDonald's just as I'm doing now, and they see someone with their Colin McRae car and their legend Colin McRae legend sticker in their car. I don't think you would see that the same way as someone else, you know. Just personally, so you know, the veil is lifting, you know, isn't it? It's not just the behaviour of sports people, though, is it, that we have to scrutinise or critique, is it? It's those of any people in the public eye, any, you know, celebrities, actors, musicians, whatever. The veil is lifting. How many people are being called out on their behaviour? You know, so legendary, well, I don't know. Legendary, great. You know, Mike Tyson, convicted rapist. Does that make you great? Does that make you great? Can you separate the man from the athlete? You know? It's a very interesting question, isn't it? Are there any true heroes left? We see heroes in the movies, don't we? We see heroes on the sports pitch, heroes in inverted commas, but are there any true heroes? Are there any true legends? Are there any true great people? It's a very interesting question, isn't it? You know? And one of the criteria for greatness, one might say, is the ability to bounce back from tragedy, from mistakes, from things that you've done wrong. Can you bounce? You know, is there any contrition there? Is there any, you know? Can you, are some things too bad for you to come back from, you know? You know what I mean? I think we have to stop putting people on pedestals. I think you could argue that's the fault of the people watching these people. Because if you put someone on a pedestal, arguably on a higher standard than is able to be realistically adhered to, then you should really blame the audience, shouldn't you, for believing in these people, believing in the greatness and the legendary status that these people openly brag about having attained, you know. So that's just my view. I mean, we hear God spoken a lot, don't we? You know, oh, thank you God for, you know, my achievements and praise Allah, you know, with all this, you know, religious fervour and conviction. You know, I've performed, you know, praise Allah. That's what Prince Naz did, wasn't it? It was always, you know, it was all like a religious thing. Well, I don't think Allah would have been very proud of Naz's exploits in his private life. Did Allah want you to, nearly kill someone in a car by multiple times breaking the law and acting like a boy racer, a teenage boy racer? I don't think Allah really wanted that, did he? So is the legendary status warranted? Some might say Jesus, whether he was real or not, but he was a mythical character, wasn't he? I think a lot of these sportsmen are trying to, they quote Jesus, don't they? And they quote, did it for Jesus, I couldn't have done it without Jesus, praise Jesus, you know. Jesus is the standard. Well, I don't really think a lot of the, is the Jesus standard realistic to attain? Is it realistic to attain that? So if you get 80% Jesus and you do all these amazing things, yet you nearly kill someone in a car, does that still make you legendary, or do we define legendary as 100% Jesus or 99% Jesus? You know, like you know, what standard? What standard? No one's really said. No one's really. We haven't really set the standard, have we? What? No one's defined what legendary is. No one's defined what great is. Maybe that's part of the problem. What's the criteria? What's the criteria that you need to consider? When deciding whether someone is legendary or great. I mean, you could look at some of the rock stars. Like when you get to a certain age, you're called legendary. What does it actually mean? What does it actually mean? That you've been around for a while, that you're successful, that you've done great things. Yes. Who's better than who? You know, who's better than who? Who's great? Who isn't? Were the Sex Pistols great? Was Johnny Rotten great? Was he legendary? Or was it the people that helped support him to get there? Did he do anything that wasn't really, shall we say, did he do things that were a little bit untoward, you know? Who's better than who? Who's great, who isn't? Is Martin Knopfler better than John Lydon because he's got more albums and he went longer and he only needed a cup of tea and he didn't need drugs? Is he better because of that? Or is it your fire burned so bright but for a short period of time? Is that better? Or is it better to be a slow burn or a medium burn for a long period of time? Does that make you great? Does that make you legendary? You know, if you attain all this success at the expense of the relationship with your brother, David Knopfler, Martin Knopfler, by being a cunt to your brother, but yet become really successful, was it cunty behaviour? Does that cunty behaviour prevent you from being a legend, or is that excused? Is that seen through, that behaviour seen through the veil, seen through the prism of, well, he did all this stuff, so we just forgive that. We see that through the light, the prism of that, so that behaviour couldn't have been that. No, because he's a legend. You see, there's a lot of cognitive bias, isn't there? But anyway, yes.